think I need to share a comment that he wrote in The End of Faith.
Okay.
And I'd be curious to have you expand upon it, where you wrote, "There is clearly a sacred dimension to our existence, and coming to terms with it could well be the highest purpose of human life." Sounds very spiritual to me.
Yeah, I part company with many atheists in that I'm interested in spiritual experience. I think there is, while I wish we had a better word for it, I think because that word we have to recognize carries a lot of metaphysical baggage, there is such a thing as profoundly transformative, meaningful experience that can be very hard-won. I mean, you might have to go into a cave for a month or a year to have certain experiences. And so the contemplative literature is something that I read and I take seriously. The problem is it is all so riddled with religious superstition and dogmatism that you really do have to be a selective consumer of this literature. And every religious person takes his peak experiences as confirmation of the metaphysics in which he is seeking those experiences. So that the Muslim thinks that this is his feelings of rapture during prayer. He thinks this confirms the fact that Muhammad was really in his cave talking to the Archangel Gabriel and that the Quran is the perfect word of God. And I mean, your claim that religion is not a matter of believing propositions is just manifestly false when you're talking about what billions of people
I didn't say religion,
believe.
I said belief in God.
Well, belief in God. I mean,
It entails belief in certain propositions, but belief in God isn't a propositional belief the way I believe that this, table is hard.
Well, for you, a belief in the divine origin of certain books figures rather centrally to Christianity, Judaism, and Islam.
Yes.
This entails a variety of claims which are on their face at odds with science. The belief that Jesus was born of a virgin may be a cherished claim for most Christians. It is also a claim about biology. I mean, this is why you can't keep religion and science apart. Their truth claims cannot be disentangled, which is what you want to do.
I don't want to spend my night defending the virgin birth, but but it's
Now I have my story. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It would be.
But it
refreshing
actually
if you
is not a
tried.
claim about biology. What it is a claim about is the idea that natural laws, which themselves, by the way, are an article of faith. I mean, we know since Hume.
No, that's a very slippery and dangerous
Yes,
slope.
but it's true. I mean, you can. They are. You can't say. I mean, I didn't start this. Hume did, and he was a good atheist.
You'll notice nobody says this in an airplane at 30,000 feet.
Having said that, yeah, well, it is. I didn't say that it's not an article of firm faith, but it's still an article of faith. That those laws can never be suspended seems to me on the face of it a claim that's unprovable, and there's no reason why a Christian can't say that the laws of biology have been suspended once in history or will be suspended sometime in the future. That's not the same thing as that doesn't
But that is,
to me to
if
be
you
a
unpack that
conflict
claim,
between,
it is a claim about physics and cosmology. I mean, it touches all of science. And so, I mean, for instance, the idea, this expectation on the part of something like 59% of the American population, according to Gallup, that Jesus will return to Earth to judge us. This entails claims about the human survival of death, apparently the human flight without the aid of technology. I mean, this is what people are visualizing.
Do you think, I'm curious, do you think that the idea of human survival of death is an anti-scientific claim?
Well, in the naive form that most people entertain it clearly is. Now,
they don't think that their body doesn't disintegrate. They assume that it does disintegrate. What they assume is that there is something inside of you that is eternal, which I assume as well.
And
it doesn't seem to me anti-scientific.
Well, it's anti-scientific if you believe that you have good evidence for that. I mean, this is what's anti-scientific. When your certainty, when your convictions don't scale with your evidence. I mean, I'm actually open-minded on the survival of death. I don't know.
You say about reincarnation, that there could even be evidence for it in your book.
Yes, I mean, I can easily tell you what would constitute evidence. I'm not saying this evidence exists, but I mean, I can tell you what would constitute evidence for the truth of Mormonism. It's just not forthcoming.
We're not going to get political on this.
I mean, there are all kinds of scientific things you can say about religion, which religious people tend not to want to hear. I mean, you can say, for instance, that Mormonism is objectively less likely to be true than Christianity. Now, why can you say this? Because Mormonism is just Christianity plus some rather stupid ideas.
Let me ask you seriously a question that's not. This question is actually not a gotcha at all. I really do wonder whether you believe that it is possible, since you say something about the viability of intuition in your book, I wonder if you think that it's possible for people to know things, or, if you don't want to use know, to believe true things and feel like they have evidence for true things that is not accessible through reason? Or is that not possible?
Yeah, well, this opposition between intuition and reason ultimately is a false one, because our reasoning is intuitive to the core. I mean, if I ask you how you know that 2 + 2 makes 4, you will be at pains to explain it. And intuition is simply that mode we're operating in, where things just strike us as true or false, and we can't get beneath them. Now, there are ways to get beneath them scientifically. I mean, we can know a lot about intuition and failures of intuition. And we use certain intuitions to get around other intuition. I mean, just take a very simple example. If I asked you how, if you folded a newspaper 100 times, how thick would it be? Most people intuitively think, well, I can do that, and it's going to be, as thick as the Sunday Times or a brick or something. But it's actually, 6 billion light years across. Now, how we get there from with just the intuitions of arithmetic. I mean, you explain the process of exponentiation to somebody, how to fold a piece of paper 100 times is to essentially multiply its thickness by 2 raised to the power of 100, and then you see that the numbers get very big. Now, this is reasoning. This is you don't get much more rigorous than arithmetic in terms of reasoning, but it is intuitive to the core. The fact that any of this is intelligible is a matter of intuition. So yes, there are ethical intuitions. There are, I would argue, contemplative or spiritual intuitions, but no intuition you can have when you sit down in prayer or in meditation is going to authenticate most of what religious people believe most of the time in the service of their religions, like the virgin birth of Jesus or the divine origin of the book of Moses.
I agree, and I don't think that most religious people would say that that comes to them through intuition, but I wonder, since from the beginning of time, 98% of all human beings who have ever lived have had an intuitive sense that there is something, some being or force greater than themselves, does that constitute for you even a scintilla of evidence that it's true?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So